I'm Andy, aka Googleman, and this is my look at what I think you should be doing and settings that you should be changing in Gmail.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's Googleman! Hi guys, and welcome back to aka Googleman. Please remember to click on the subscribe button down below, and if you like what you see, give me a thumbs up, and remember please to share this video with other teachers that you think might like this as well. Thank you very much indeed. Now, in a previous video I spoke to you about processing emails using some of the specific features of Gmail and looked at some of the basic ways that I use to help tame my inbox, and I seem to recall calling email the devil. Now since then I've been looking at some of the settings in Gmail to try and help make that process that little bit easier, and some things for me to think about to create a little bit of clarity in this kind of macrocosm of chaos that is email. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you some of those settings and talk about some of the things that I think you should do to help tame your own inboxes. If that sounds like something interesting to you, let's jump in. Okay, so before we take a look in my inbox and have a look through the settings, I just want to make one suggestion for you based on my last Gmail video. I did that video working on the assumption that everyone processing will be going from a kind of an inbox zero standpoint, and you'd be only dealing with the emails you get on a day-to-day basis. But since then, it's become quite obvious that not everyone's at that place yet, and actually getting to that point takes quite a long time and a lot of effort in some cases. So I just want to give you a little tip, because I've spoken to a couple of colleagues recently about this, and they have got thousands of emails in their inbox. Most of them are unread, but it's visually it's really cluttered, and it's really stressing them out. So take my advice to lessen that workload for you. Pick a date at some point in the past, because chances are you've got emails going back a couple of years. We're approaching the end of September now, so say pick a date, the 30th of June. Just pluck that one out. You may have some important stuff from July perhaps you might want to go through, because it will be perhaps important information for the end of the year and the start of the new. So anything from the 30th of June or before, select it and archive it. Don't even read it. Okay? Don't change it to unread, don't do anything with it at all, just archive it. It means that you've still got it, so at a pinch you can use the Google search function to find that email if you know who it's from or what it was about, but it's gone, and chances are probably more than half of the emails you had in your inbox that were cluttering it will be gone, okay? And it will make that job so much less daunting, okay? Give that a go for me first. Okay, the first thing I want you to consider is the type of inbox that you actually have. Now, I know that sounds like a strange comment, especially if you've never spent a lot of time scouring through Gmail, but actually there are lots and lots of different inbox types. So if you look at my screen here, what you actually have here is the setting called multiple inboxes. So I've got things set, so I still have my menus on my left-hand side here, my inbox and my starred and my snoozed. But actually, I prefer to have that menu really kind of tucked out the way. If you want to do that, by the way, you've got your hamburger menu in the top left-hand side. If you've got that menu sticking out and you want to clear a bit of space on your screen, click that hamburger, it goes away. You'll still get a number indication on there when you get new emails in, or a red dot that tells you have a new message for you to look at. And the way mine has been set up in this particular account is I have a list here for starred emails. I don't have any starred at the moment, so there's nothing there. But then I have another one called training requests. I'm getting emails from members of staff at the moment where they want me to perhaps sit down with them and do a little bit of work with them on G Suite. So when I get those emails, I send them and I put them into that particular line. The way I come to that is if I come to my settings cog over here, you get the quick settings. I'm just going to work in quick settings for now because it's a lot easier that way. And if you come down, you get to inbox type. Now, default is what you will have right now when you've got it opened up, okay? You can then have important first. Now, what Gmail does is it tries to categorize emails that it thinks are important, and it will base that on the content of the email, who has sent that email, and previous interactions that you've had with them. So emails that I have with my line manager, for example, would get automatically categorized by Gmail as important because we tend to talk about important things by email, okay? you might have unread first. And this is one that I used to have for a very, very long time. I would have at the top, anything that is unread would appear at the top there, and then underneath would be everything else, okay? I've moved away from that simply because I tend not to have an everything else to distinguish from my unread at the moment. And I'm quite happy to be at that state. But perhaps if you would prefer to keep perhaps emails that you need to action still in your inbox but read, that might be something that you could do. By the same token, you can have starred first. So if you've processed emails and you've got a starred list of emails for quick access, you could have that at the top of your emails. A priority inbox I'll talk about in a moment, but it decides on what order things appear in your inbox in a very, very similar way, but you can be a bit more bespoke about that. And here I have multiple inboxes. So what you would do for that is you would click on customize, it selects it for you, and you get this main screen. And what it asks you to do is put in a search query. So you can literally tell it to search for a particular batch of emails. Typically speaking, it would be those that are under a label somewhere. So if you've created labels already, like in the previous email video, you can put is colon and then the name of that particular label. So you can see my section 1 is colon starred. So any emails that I star for quick access will go into that label. And then I can actually name it as well, so that the section name, it doesn't have to be that it can just leave it as it's starred, and that's what it will default as. But I've renamed it to starred emails because that's just a little bit more user friendly for me. And then I've got a label called training requests. So I put in is colon training requests, and then I just put the name as training requests. So I've taken the is off. Again, it's just a bit more visually pleasing. What you're also able to do from there is decide where you want those to be. So I've got them set to the right of my inbox. So from kind of left to right on my screen, I've got my main inbox, I've got my multiple inbox, my starts and my training requests. And then if I want it open, I can then open my tasks in that pane on the right, and I can have this kind of 3-column effect, which is why I kind of get rid of that extra menu on the left-hand side. You could choose to have it above or below, depending on your preference. Enable reading pane is an option there. I will say when you've got multiple inboxes open, that is not available to you, okay? And what happens is when you open an email, it automatically takes over the entire screen when you're reading it. I actually think that's a really, really good thing because it allows you to focus on that one email. It opens it up on the whole screen and you are dedicated to processing that single email. It's a really, really good option for me, I think. Once you're done, if you've made any changes to it, you can, if you haven't got labels and you want to create some, you can do that on the left-hand side here. So you can go to your menu and go to more, scroll down and create new label. And it works in the same way as you did before if you did it while you were processing, and you can then add that to your multiple inboxes if that's what you're going to do. Once you are done, however, you can come to the bottom and you would have save changes. I don't have any changes to save because I haven't done that here. Okay, so that's those multiple inboxes. The other option, which I spoke about, was priority inbox. So in this menu, so this is the under open all settings and then inbox, okay? If you're not going to use the quick settings, we have priority inbox. And it's a very, very similar thing. But you can decide more bespokely the options that are there. So number 1, default to unread at the top, and then starred, and then kind of everything else underneath that. Now you might decide you want something different. You may want to reorder them. You might want important and unread. So if you are wanting to use the important label, it puts all of those things at the top, or you just want important at the top. Or you can have even more options, and you can put particular labels at the very top. So rather than having the separate inboxes on the one side, it will tier them. So at the top, you might have starred at the top, and then your second down might be your unread, and then underneath that you might have a particular label for a department. Perhaps if you put all your departmental emails into one label, you can have that there. And again, it's segregated on the main screen, but kind of tiered for you to see. How you have that set up and which one of these you use is completely up to you. And I would recommend that you just have a play around with those settings. maybe have it set up one way for maybe a week and see if it makes a difference to you. You might find that actually it's more difficult and you don't like it and you try a different way, or you want to stick to a traditional inbox. But have a look at the different inbox types and see which one works for you. Personally, I go for multiple inboxes, so that is what I'm going to set mine back to, and I'm going to leave it just like that. And back in my inbox, here is the next thing to consider looking at, and this is the conversation view. Now, again, I had a question about this from a colleague quite recently about how to switch from one to the other. Basically, your conversation view is where it takes all emails from the same thread and batches them into what essentially looks like one email in your inbox. Now, this, under certain circumstances, if you're perhaps gathering evidence and things like that, could be really, really useful. But if you're anything like me, I like to be able to see individual emails one at a time, and then to process them one at a time without the kind of visual hindrance of seeing everything else associated with it there and then. I'd rather choose that for myself. So the way you go about that is, again, you go to your settings cog and you get your quick settings, but this time you're going to go right to the bottom. And right at the bottom there, you've got conversation view. Now, as you can see, I have mine turned off. If you want to have your conversation view on, click that, and what it will do, it will reset your page. It needs to kind of like refresh the page and put your emails into the conversations. For me, this might be really helpful if you are, say, ahead of year and you are gathering information on a student. It would put all those emails into one place. And you can change this as regularly as you like. And I do change this. There are particular circumstances where I think actually a conversation view will be really handy. And again, it links to that evidence gathering in a very head of year style. For me, recently I did it. We were going through my performance management and things like that. And I had a set of emails that were going to be used for evidence in my performance management. So I switched to conversation view. What that then allowed me to do is that when I searched for those particular emails, because there was a particular subject I always used when I sent those emails, it came up with, instead of dozens of emails, individual emails, which I would have had to either print or save or move from a drive, to just a small handful of conversations that I was able to do the same thing with. And it was a massive, massive time saver. So even if you are using the non-conversation view, or using individual email view, if you need to draw out emails for evidence that have same or similar subject lines, or from a particular teacher or a particular student, use the conversation view, because once you then get that, you can print those emails off in one go instead of kind of like having to go into individual emails and link it all together. It is easier for that. But on a day-to-day email processing basis, I would leave the conversation view off. But again, I'll leave that up to you, and it will depend on you, your preferences, and greatly on your role within your organization. Okay, so what we're now going to talk about is reply and follow-up reminders. Now, depending on how you process emails, if you've perhaps used the snooze function, perhaps these won't be particularly useful. But perhaps the reply reminder function, if you are still in the process of kind of like getting your inbox to where you would like it to be, this could be actually quite useful. And what Gmail will do is, as you go through any emails that are in your inbox that you've not really done anything with, you haven't replied to, or an email that you sent you haven't had a reply to, okay, it will give you a little nudge to that effect. And it's a really, really simple thing to go for. So if you go into settings, and instead of staying in the quick settings, you go to see all settings, okay? And there is a big selection of options that you can kind of like go for here. I mean, you can set your email cancel period, the number of emails you see on a page. You know, you can set your things like your signature and things like that, which always be really, really handy. But on that first page, on your general, you will see nudges. Okay, and like I said, it's giving you a nudge. It's literally called nudges. You've got suggest emails to reply to and suggest emails to follow up. So if you've got an email way down there, especially if you're someone that gets a lot of emails, okay? Senior leadership teams, heads of faculty, heads of year, or anyone in that kind of role will get a lot of emails, okay? And because we are human, some emails do get missed. If you're the kind of person that gets 200 plus emails a day, you might not reply to all of them straight away, and that's not a criticism. It's just a mere fact of being human. Okay, and what this little feature will do is perhaps give you a nudge to reply to those emails, or equally likely and possibly more likely, if you're someone that has to send hundreds of emails every day, you might not remember to follow up on all of them because there are so many. So suggest emails to follow up on. You will probably catch most of them and follow up on most of them naturally, but there might be one or two that you don't. So by clicking that, it will just give you that little nudge. I sent that email a week ago to that head of department, and I haven't had a reply yet. Yes, I remember that now. Thank you, Gmail, for giving me a little nudge. And you can just send a gentle email reminder from them. And from that, perhaps you would snooze your sent email. Because remember, when you do send an email, as well as having the option to undo, once that message is sent, you can view that email. Okay, and if you view it, you can actually snooze the sent message. Okay, and it goes into your snooze box and then will reappear as kind of like a self-initiated nudge, if you like. But if you haven't got the self-initiated nudge, this will do it for you. Well worth a think about. Okay, so next, staying in the settings area, I'm actually going to show you two things in here. Okay, and these are the final two for today. The first one is keyboard shortcuts. Now, I've spoken about keyboard shortcuts before, and we used a few of them in the first email processing. And I said, I even mentioned them actually when I was doing my video on the actual Chromebook that I'm using. And actually, it's really, really worthwhile to know your keyboard shortcuts, but it's also worthwhile knowing that you can change them. Because while a lot of the keyboard shortcuts used by Gmail are really, really quite intuitive, R for reply, F for forward, A for reply all, and things like that, there are some that perhaps if you don't use a particular feature attached to the keyboard shortcut, you could remap that to something a bit more useful. So let's say, for example, you don't use the starred emails. Okay, the shortcut for that is just to press S. It will star the email for you. If you don't use those, but you do use the snoozed email function, it might be that you want your keyboard shortcut for snoozing to be S. It starts with an S, so you're going to use the S and you don't use starred. You can do that. You can remap that to your choice. And the way you do that's really quite simple. So you go first of all to advanced in your settings, and then scroll down to where it says custom keyboard shortcuts. As you can see, I have mine turned on. I've not made any changes as yet because at the moment I'm relatively happy, but I want the ability to be there should I want to change any. And I've clicked mine to enable. I then saved changes and I had to reset. I had to refresh the page for Gmail, at which point you go back into your settings, and if the eagle-eyed amongst you will already see there's a keyboard shortcuts menu now on the far right. You might not see this yet, but I have it here. So you click in that and you get a complete list of all the different shortcuts that you have available to you. Okay, so let's say that you don't want to snooze your email, or you don't want to star them, but you want to snooze them. All you need to do is kind of scroll down to where you want things to be. So here's snoozed. Here we go. I want snoozed to be S, but before I can do that, I need to get rid of my starred email. So all I need to do is scroll around and find that keyboard shortcut for star, which should be an S. So that's up here. I'm going to delete that keyboard shortcut so it's not there anymore. Go back down to snooze email down here, and delete that and change that to an S. Okay, I can then save those changes, and that's it. It's that simple. And as you can see, there is a huge range of keyboard shortcuts available. Probably a good number of them you won't use, but there are enough in there that speed things along. I mean, I don't use the actual buttons on the screen. I don't use the on-screen buttons to reply and forward and things like that. I just use the keyboard shortcuts, and actually it saves me Granted, only a couple of seconds probably per email that I do, but over time, it means that it keeps me in a flow of doing emails rather than jumping between my keyboard and my mouse, particularly if I've got a Bluetooth mouse. I might not be using that. I might use the trackpad, and that might be even more disruptive depending on how you scroll, especially if you happen to have a laptop where you can't, I can use gestures on the Chromebook, but you can't do that on many laptops unless, of course, you are a Mac user, in which case you're quite lucky. So that's my take on keyboard shortcuts. Well worth a look. Try remapping a few, see if that makes a difference, but maybe keep a note of the ones that you have changed just in case. And last but not least, email templates. Now, I did speak about this very briefly in an original video that I did for EWS, and certainly while we were in lockdown, I found that I was sending a lot of the same email. So I had performing arts at my school, so a lot of students were sending me work for drama. Now, I don't actually teach those people drama, so I would have to forward the work to one of my colleagues. And of course, I was saying very similar or the same things in those emails. So I used email templates to help me out with this, to speed my process along. And again, like many other things, it's so easy to set up, but it has a massive impact on what you can do. So you go to settings first of all and click on see all settings, just as we have done a couple of times already. And again, you go to the advanced tab and you have templates. Now, it defaults to being disabled. Okay, you do have to enable these. Once you do that, you click enable and save changes, and it'll take you back to your inbox screen. It will reset that page for you to kind of tell Gmail that you are now wanting to use email templates. To create them, it couldn't be simpler. And so simple, in fact, you're worthwhile you making them on the fly. So let's say when I was sending these work to my colleagues, okay, I started off, I would set a new email. So I'd compose a new email, which for me is keyboard shortcut C. It is for many other people as well. And it would be the subject line, can't spell words, drama work. And my email would then read something along the lines of, hi, hope you're well. Here is some drama work from, and I might leave perhaps a few X's in there, maybe, if I wanted to. So I would just change that one element of the email if I wanted to make it a little more personal. But again, it's not necessary always. It depends on the emails that you're sending. From there, you come down to your kind of like mini 3 dots, your tiny hamburger menu down here for more options, and templates. You then have save draft as template and save new template, and you can call that word, and it defaults as the subject line to that email, so that's what I'm going to leave it as, and click on save. And that's that job absolutely done. So I'm just going to delete that draft just to prove that I'm not cheating here. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to press C again and compose a brand new email, but this time I'm going to go to my 3 dots menu, template. Once it loads up, I'm just going to click on the drama work template, and there it is. There is that email that I sent. So if you are ever in a position where you have to send the same email quite a lot, perhaps you are, I've used this before, ahead of year, perhaps, you will ask for information about certain students in under your care. You might send that same email about multiple students. Okay, so set that as a template. If you're contacting home about positives or negatives, you might have a set email. Perhaps your school has a particular way they like you to word these emails. They almost have a template of their own, but it's not given to you as a template. Perhaps you can create that, so that way you need only adjust names and add in personalized information. And this could be a huge time saver if your role calls for this kind of email. So please, if you don't do this already, put this into place. Okay, that's it, and that is my take on Gmail for today. I really hope you found something you can take away and use and make your lives a little bit easier. Obviously, some of the things that are in there might take a little bit of setup time, but I promise you, in the end, it really, really will be worth it. I will see you all again on Thursday. Until then, stay well, stay safe, googleman out.